So on that theme, let me introduce you now to someone who is really a small business advocate, a real innovator, and an ecosystem builder like so many of us here at the GEC. They have a fascinating role because they're leading the California office of the Small Business Advocate. So in terms of thriving ecosystems, look no further. So we'll have a conversation, and I know Claudia will have a number of good questions for our next guest. Please welcome Dr. Tara Lynn Gray. Welcome.
Dr. Tara Lynn Gray, Director of California Office of Small Business Advocate. What a pleasure to be able to have a conversation with you.
Thank you.
So I want to start because I think that in Jen and in Jack, what we've been hearing a lot is the power of ecosystems and how important they are. And I think that you represent that. So how did you become an ecosystem builder?
Great question. I've pretty much seen small business from just about every angle. I've been a small business owner for 2 decades, a business coach and counselor for 2 small business development centers. I ran programs for community-based organizations. I was a CEO of an ethnic chamber and a foundation CEO. And I think all of those experiences really led me to my current role, and also led me to really seek more effective ways to support small businesses and intentionally work to remove barriers to their success. And I would like to say that though I am an appointed official in state government, the views that I share today and opinions that I express are my own and not official statements of the administration. I also say that I self-identify as a small business advocate, an innovator, and really an ecosystem builder. When I think about what I've done in my career over the last 30 years, it has really been focused on those 3 core things. In my doctoral program, I wrote about the importance of the ecosystem, their design, implementation. I really worked to tie those to UN Sustainable Development Goals, and
which is my previous company.
Yes, which I learned when we talked earlier, which is awesome, and really focus on how public policy can dismantle barriers and drive ecosystem success. And I've drawn on work that I did in California's Central Valley, where there was a regional economic development initiative called DRIVE. It was a compilation of 18 distinct economic development initiatives, one of which was focused on small business development. And so I've really centered my work around someone that many people here know, Gary Schoeninger's mindset research and recognizing opportunities, access to capital, and removing social and financial barriers to success.
And that is important. I mean, like, you're doing it from California, but that applies to every single state in the US, to every country, to have the need to have strong ecosystems to support us, like I am experiencing it firsthand myself, not only launching a brand, but launching a category altogether, and that takes a village. And so I want to ask you, I think that a 3-pronged question altogether, if you permit. So what grounds you in your ecosystems building work? What works? What are the barriers and how can we dismantle them? And are there any themes that you observe that shape or expand those ecosystems of entrepreneurs?
Yeah, my work is really grounded in what I call the 3 imperatives. The first is democratizing access to capital. And that means really ensuring that the right size capital and the right type of capital are available to all small businesses. Second is diversifying the innovation economy.
Right.
And that means making sure that founders from diverse backgrounds, diverse communities have access to all of the resources that they need to grow their startup. just like others. And then lastly, is really driving economic mobility through entrepreneurship, making sure that small businesses, when they start, that they are using strategies that really create and grow wealth, so that they're not only concentrating on the startup, but they're thinking about their investments along the way, saving, they're thinking about operational strategies that grow and really generate wealth for them and their families. Because we know, the research tells us, that especially for communities of color, entrepreneurs build wealth at a faster rate than their non-business owning counterparts. So very significant, very important.
Yeah, no, I'm thinking of my own experience, and you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right about this, and how and why is this work so important? Why is this? What you have changed paradigm of California, expanded the state ecosystem. What role has public policy played in your work, and what else would you like to add in that space?
Yeah, we've had the benefit of a very large ecosystem in California, and attention.
Probably the largest of the country,
yes,
right?
Like it is the largest in the country.
Where the most entrepreneurs come, and you have the most, all of those unicorns, but also small business and so on. Yeah,
that's correct.
Well done to California. Let's give it to actually people like
yes, we invented the unicorn
that are like pushing forward. Yeah.
Well, I think that attention to the barriers that I was talking about earlier, removing those barriers is really critical to boosting the bottom line, and we are the 4th largest economy in the world. And we have seen that investing in the ecosystem, and this is where public policy plays a huge role in making sure that there is funding to support entrepreneurs as they are starting and growing and exiting, and making sure that resources for every single phase of the entrepreneur's journey are really available. We, over the last 5 years, have looked at $158 million in investment in our ecosystem, what we call our technical assistance program, which is really the flagship program in my office. And that $158 million investment has paid pretty big dividends. For every $1 million that's been invested in those programs, it's yielded 88 new businesses. For every $10,000 invested in the ecosystem, California got 5 new jobs. For every single dollar invested in the ecosystem, our small businesses have accessed $18 in lending capital and $23 in equity capital. So the case is made. You know, we've done the work to prove that ecosystem building is valuable, it's necessary, and it has to be a part of any economic development strategy. And inside of all of that, we still have some communities and regions that are not yet thriving and are not yet reaching where they want to reach to access their California dream.
And look, I mean, like you're obviously in the U.S. For those of you that don't know, whether you're Colombian, if you live in the US, if you're Colombian, Mexican, Venezuelan, it doesn't matter, they all call you Latino or Hispanic. I don't know when they started like labeling that, like all Latinos or Hispanics. And so I'm like, the first time I moved to America 10 years ago, I was like, what is this Hispanic thing? I'm a happy Mexican, what is this thing? But this group that now, you know, like is called Hispanics or Latinos, are basically 1 in every 5 entrepreneurs in the country. We're generating $800 billion a year through our small businesses. Latinas, here to any Latina, we generate small businesses 6 times faster than any other group in America, making us the job creator #1 in the country. But We don't have the conditions. Like, we're all entrepreneurial, whether you're working, you have your corporate work, you have your entrepreneurial gig at the side, and you have little empanadas, you have little sewing job or whatever it is, but only 3% of Latinos ever make it to more than $1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
Because we don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the access to the capital, we don't have the guidance to get to places. And so it is really imperative to put those ecosystems in place. And in California, that's where we make it the best, thanks to people like you. But like all across, I think that the countries, you start looking at that, from 4,500,000 small businesses are Latinos. Imagine that we can actually provide them with the ecosystems and the pieces that you are. Imagine that there's every person like me that has the same passion, that wants to have the same drive as an entrepreneur, is able to make it. You're looking at America's competitiveness.
Yes.
You're not looking at like the Latino business. You're looking at the jobs we're going to be able to generate, the amount of fun that people will have when we have so tall guys. I can't even tell you, but let alone that. Like,
half of all private sector jobs in California are created by small businesses. 49.1% of California's 4.2 million small businesses are diverse businesses, and they contribute $192.8 million to California's bottom line, despite the vast majority of them only having less than 20 employees, and a significant number of those less than 5. So as an economic developer, I look to unlock the full potential of our small businesses by creating real access to opportunities. Scaling growth is a major part of that. If you look across our country, if you look across our state, when you see a thriving city, you see thriving small businesses. They go hand in hand. When you think about celebrating life's milestones, that happens at so many small businesses. Anniversaries, birthdays, graduations, you name it. They are the place where so many young people get their first job. And they're also the place that many people get a second chance. So they're really community institutions. And that is why it is imperative that we make sure that there are ecosystems to support every phase of small business growth, from startup to exit.
Yeah, and policy makes a huge difference, because at the end of the day, otherwise it's a lot of effort, grassroots, but you have to meet it with policy. How do you do that?
Well, in my state, the $158 million that I talked about was the policy approach. The governor and legislature set aside funding for technical assistance expansion program, which Governor Newsom made permanent at $26 million a year, $3 million of that dedicated to a capital infusion program, $23 million dedicated to the ecosystem players. So that is a significant policy approach. Additionally, Governor Newsom signed Executive Order N1622 back in 22, which mandated that all of the state agencies across the state apparatus consider equity in the implementation of the programs. And so that helped as my office was redesigning the implementation of our ecosystem for our Small Business Credit Initiative program. It helped us really kind of turn things upside down and look at things from an equity perspective. And that had us include trusted messengers and referral partners, in addition to our women's business centers, small business development centers, veteran business outreach centers, a whole host of community-based organizations, CDFIs, I mean, you name it. Those players typically are disparate competitors in the small business ecosystem landscape. And so what we did in California was to say, no more competition, we're gonna turn this into co-opetition and co-optimization, really, of the ecosystem. And so we created a mesh network
So I want to ask, just like by a raise of hands, if you in your city or your country have I'm going to obviously have a leading question, but like, do you feel that you have could you see in your city or your country's improvement in policy that would benefit entrepreneurship ecosystems? Raise your hand if you think that there's room for improvement. Okay, so you see that? So we need a lot of playbooks. We need a lot of understanding. Is there anybody that wants to raise their hand that thinks that has like the level of sophistication that we're hearing here from the ecosystem policy system in their cities or countries? So we have a lot to learn from you. You're gonna give us your playbook. So I think that there's a lot of room for improvement on how the policy and government can support the building of the ecosystems. So talk a little bit about that scale ecosystem and what makes it unique.
Yeah, thank you. So I want to hit 2 points here. First, I think what makes ecosystem building and service delivery through our ecosystems difficult sometimes is the fact that entrepreneurs come from not only diverse backgrounds, but different educational levels, different levels of readiness, different approaches to their business, different language access needs. And all of those add complexity to service delivery via an ecosystem. And so dealing with those and making sure that you have enough players in your ecosystem to speak to all of those is a necessary ingredient, right? None of us have a crystal ball. We don't know which businesses are going to be successful when they present, right? Because of all of those different factors. We just don't know. But what we do know is that mentors are important. What we do know is that capital is important. What we do know is technical assistance, marketing, financials. All of those things are very, very important to whether or not an entrepreneur ends up being successful. So what we did in California is we created a network called SCALE, S-C-A-L-E, and not only are we proud of ourselves because it's a single word acronym, which can be hard in government, but it also embodies what is the outsized opportunity. I said earlier there are 4.2 million small businesses in California. Our goal is to get 25% of them to add 3 jobs. If we were able to do that, we could create 3.1 million jobs in the economy, and that doesn't do anything but boost all of the regions, all of the cities, and the entire state's bottom line. So that is really our goal. The design network, the design of the network is a mesh design. We've got over 200 partners in the network. Again, the CDFIs, all of those partners, trusted messengers, referral partners.
You're getting all the cattle in the same ranch. You're like, okay, guys, don't go out. Come here. Here's mama.
Yes. And what is also different about this is we historically have provided services to small businesses in a linear fashion. You come here for this, and then you go there for that, and that, and that. And it puts a burden on small businesses. So what we did with our network is we put the small business at the center of that network. And so every single partner, whether it's a capital partner, whether it's a TA partner, whether it's financial assistance, disaster preparedness, all of those partners are able to reach into the business, and they are also able to reach into each other. So where there are service gaps, knowledge gaps, the partners are free. They're not penalized. They're free to just refer throughout the network.
So I want to ask in the audience, if you don't mind, just raise your hand if you're a founder or an entrepreneur. Raise your hand if you're in the public policy. sector? Okay, I'm going to ask you two last questions. The first one is, since there's so many entrepreneurs and a founder, and I am a founder myself, what advice would you give me? Like, just teach me, coach me on the spot. You just heard I am launching a company. No one knows about the category I'm getting in. This is the first time I do it. Second question, what advice do you give policymakers to make sure that they can be champions of policy that are learning from you? Let's go.
Okay, so quickly, don't go it alone. Get help. Find your way to an ecosystem that can support you, to the entrepreneurs, to the policymakers. Think outside the box. Be as disruptive and as creative as the entrepreneurs that you are supporting. In California, that meant that we had to get a platform for data collection and reporting, and to achieve the level of effectiveness and ensure cost efficiencies. And so we selected EIC as our platform, and it has been a game changer for us in not only connecting the providers in the ecosystem, but being able to report on the effectiveness of the funding. And so I would say to policymakers, make sure that you go for it. Supporting small strengthens us all.
I love it. Dr. Lynn Gray, Director of California Office of Small Business Advocate, please join me in giving her a round of applause. Thank you so much for having us. Wish us luck. Thank you.